Davy, and I'm awesome! And welcome to Davy's Awesome Stories, where I tell funny stories from my past or go on a rant in an effort to make you laugh. So a long time ago, I was 19 years old, I had finally moved out of my parents' house, started my own life, because I found a place that I could afford. This place was actually just a room I was renting out of somebody's house. It was cheap, it was affordable, and I didn't live with my parents. But, like everything in life, you get what you pay for. This guy was, well, eccentric would be putting it nice. Like, don't get me wrong, he was a nice guy for the most part, just really eccentric. Like, we agreed upon when my rent was due, yet every month, even though I was never late on the rent, he would always ask me like a week in advance, so are you going to pay the rent when you get paid? You're going to pay it when you get paid, right? So when you're going to pay it, you're going to pay it when you get paid, right? You're going to pay the rent, right? You may be wondering what this whole thing was all about. I don't know, he just did that every time he talked, as if he was putting on his own little imaginary puppet show or something. But other than that, he wasn't terrible, except for little things like, he was very intrusive. Me and the other guy that lived there, we caught him several times, sitting outside one of our doors as we were talking, and I was going like, what are you doing? If you want to come in and talk, then come in and talk. And he would always just chalk it up to, oh, I'm just being silly. No, being creepy. If I went and hung out with my friend all day or something like that, he'd be asking question after question about it. Not in a sense of like a parent who wants to know, but more like just he's got to know what I'm doing all the time. And even weirder, it got to a point that my friends and family didn't like calling me if they weren't 100% sure if I was home. Because if I wasn't home, he'd constantly start talking their ear off. Even to the point that my brother one time told me, dude, what's up with that guy you rent from? What do you mean? Well, every time I call, even if I'm just calling to ask you a quick question, he talks and talks and talks my ear off, and I have to sit there and get him off the phone. And you know I don't like talking to people on the phone. Oh, apparently he does that with everybody. He does that when my friends call. He did that to Dad when he called. He's just like that. Okay, but what are you telling him about me? What? Well, the last time I talked to him, he was like, you're Davy's brother, right? He talks about you so much, I kind of feel like we're brothers. Yeah, I don't know what he's saying there, Josh. I mean, haven't really talked about you much. And I was sitting there racking my brain, like, what did I say about my brother to him? Truth was, the only thing I had ever said to him about my brother was, I have a brother and his name is Josh. But again, he did that to everybody. Even my mom talked about how she didn't like calling because, well, I don't mean to be mean, but every time I call for you, if you're not there, he won't stop talking. He just talks my ear off, and honestly, if you're not there, I just want to get off the phone. And it was like, I don't think he's that lonely. I mean, he's got me and my other roommate. His mother comes over almost every day. His sister comes over all the time. He has other friends. And the thing was, he did it to my roommate's family too. His sisters would call all the time, and he'd have to sit there and talk their ears off like they were family. Like he just had to be family with everybody. The worst thing though about with him when it came to the phones, my roommate and I both would hear this stuff way after the fact. He'd talk our friends and family's ears off, or even our employers. Like if my employer called to ask if I could come in that day on my day off and I wasn't home, he'd have to sit there and rush to get him off the phone. But the messed up part is, we almost never got our messages. He'd always forget. I bought him a pad and a pen and put it next to the phone and said, please, just write it down after you get off the phone. Because yeah, like a week or two later, I'd have to hear from my mom or something. I called last week, why'd you never call me back? Luckily, a lot of them stopped asking because they got to the point they understood, because I never knew that you called. Even if he wasn't home, we had an answering machine. Remember, this was really early 2000s, where not everybody had cell phones, which is something that I kind of wish we had at that point, because then that could have saved me a lot of headaches. But we didn't. We just had a phone in the house with an answering machine. And if somebody left a message for either me or my other roommate, and he got to it first, he'd listen, delete it, and completely forget to tell us, no matter how important it was. So much so that my roommate and I sat him down and were like, look, let's try this. Since you can't seem to figure out how to write it down, if they leave a message, just don't delete it. Whether the light is blinking or not, we'll come in, we'll push the button, and see if there's a message on there for us. It didn't work. Almost the entire time I lived there, if you didn't get a hold of me when you called me, I was probably not going to know about it. which led to another weird thing he did. He'd always want to know details about everything that was going on in our lives, but have weird roundabout ways of asking. Like, he wouldn't just straight up tell us, like, hey, what's this about? Or, hey, what does that mean? Or, so what's going on there? No. He'd repeat what he heard and then say, whatever that means, as if there was some secret hidden message. And there never was. It was usually very straightforward. The best example of this. See, again, this was the early 2000s. Internet shopping was a thing, but it wasn't as prominent as it is now. If you went to a store and they didn't have what you want, if you even had the internet, because again, not all of us had internet at the time, but if you did, there was actually no guarantee you would find it on the internet. Now, it's very different. If you go to a store, they don't have what you want, you can easily go find it online. It's very unlikely you won't find it online. Not to mention there are ways to figure out if this is a legit website or if they're just stealing your information. Back then, it was all kind of a gamble. Like, you went to a major retailer and said, hey, you're out of this, is there any way you could order it? The answer was no. If it's not on the shelf, deal with it. But you went to a little mom and pop place, especially this one place I used to love. It was a Christian bookstore, and I bought a lot of stuff there, and every time, if there was something I was looking for, and they didn't even have a spot bird on their shelf, the owner would go into his computer. If he saw that one of his distributors had it, he'd order it for you, which I took advantage of a lot, because there was plenty of times that I went in there and there was something I wanted that wasn't there. And when it showed up, he'd call you, let you know, hey, it's in, come pick it up. However, there was a limit on how long he would hold it before just putting it on the shelf himself, understandably. I wasn't sure what that limit was. Came to find out later, there wasn't really a specific time frame, like 2-3 weeks. It was just if he noticed in a couple of weeks that it was still there, he'd go, fine, I'm putting it back on the shelf. Now here's another thing. At the time, I lived in a small town. To do any kind of real shopping, you had to drive an hour one way or an hour the other way. There was nothing like in that little town. I remember one morning, it's early, and I'm getting up to go take a shower and get ready for work, and while still groggy and tired, I hear, the manager called, they said your book was in, whatever that means. And that threw me for a little bit of a loop, because remember, I just woke up. So I was like, what happened? Yeah, the manager called. They said your book was in. Whatever that means. They called this early? They're not even open yet. No, they called a few days ago. They said your book was in. Whatever that means. A few days ago? Did they talk to you or did they leave a message on the machine? They left a message on the machine. They said your book was in. Whatever that means. And instead of just leaving it on the machine like we talked about so I could hear it, you decided to erase it again? Well, I'm sorry, but they said your book was in. Whatever that means. I realized that, but yesterday and the day before, my day off, I could have gone and gotten it. Now I'm not going to be able to go get it until my next set of days off, and I don't know how long they're going to hold it. If you would have left the message on the machine, I could have taken care of it. Like we talked about. Okay, but all they said was that your book was in. Whatever that means. It's not the point right now. The point is, I'm really sick and tired of not getting my messages, and now I may not be able to go get it. Well, I am sorry. I'll work on that. But they said your book was in. Whatever that means. Dude, would you like me to crack that code for you? My book is in. There's no hidden meaning there, okay? Your, as in my, book, as in thing with words and pages that you read, is in, as in is there, waiting for me to go over there and give him money so he will give me the book and I can bring it home and read it. My book is in. It's not code for meth. This is just one of the many annoying things that went on for like 2 years. And it wasn't just me he did that to. At one point his nephew was going to be coming over later. His nephew who volunteered at the firehouse. And he said, my nephew's coming by later. He said he was going to come over after he finished up at the firehouse. Whatever that means. Well, I'm no professional interpreter, but I would say that he probably means that he's going to come over when he's done at the firehouse. Turns out I was spot on. So this week there's no moral with the story, just that was very annoying. But as annoying as it was for me, hopefully you guys enjoyed the story. And if you did, be sure to hit like and subscribe. Hit that little bell so you get notifications for when I post new videos. And leave a comment. Whatever that means. Love you guys.